So the Tekken 8 Esports World Cup just ended and man was it hype. It was just dopamine after dopamine of some high level Tekken 8 and like what more can a Tekken 8 fan ask for, man? It was so sick, it was so fun. So with the Esports World Cup came like so much character representation for Tekken 8, which brings me to this video, the state of our boy Steve Fox in Tekken 8 after the buffs we got about 2 months ago now. There hasn't been a lot of Steve representation at high level and I want to talk about it. Does our boy need more buffs? What's going on? What happened to Steve? Has Steve fallen off and all that jazz? I've been doing so many guides that I haven't really been talking about other things going on in the Tekken 8 world, especially like some high level matches that happened. Like there's been so many tournaments, bro, like so many TWT events, it's just hard to keep up. So the only representation for Steve at the World Cup I believe was Lohai against Bilal in a set against Bilal. I think he first picked Shaheen, lost the set, then switched to Steve Fox, then he also lost that as well. So he was the only Steve Fox representation, man. Like it's so sad to see. I miss seeing Steve. We used to see a lot of Steve back in Tekken 7. So let's talk about how Steve is doing right now in Tekken 8. Does he need more buffs? Like what's going on? So firstly, let's talk about the changes that he received and how they really affected Steve. So what I want to say is that these patch notes or the update we received or the buffs we got for Steve weren't really like buffs in that sense. These were quality of life changes that he should have had at launch. The biggest highlight of those buffs were the fact that Steve could actually not go into Lionheart. He was not forced to go into Lionheart anymore. You can actually cancel by like holding back, but like he should have always had that, like always. So it's not really a buff compared to someone like Leroy who got some massive buffs, like insane buffs. We also got Sonic Fan from full crouch as a 14 frame punish. So that was like, you know, it's good, but like it doesn't really change Steve that much. They buffed his up forward too as well. They gave it more range for good with punishment, but that doesn't really change Steve that much either. So the update we received for Steve was good, but it was not great. It doesn't really change how Steve works in this game. Doesn't really affect him in that sense. How do I feel about Steve in this update or currently? Steve is a good character, guys. I won't really sugarcoat. I won't downplay my boy. He is a very strong character, but I just feel as though Steve has lost so much of his identity as the counter hit god in this game. Like back one doesn't really even feel like back one anymore. I don't know if it's just me, guys. Any fellow Steve mains feel the same way? Like back one isn't really slapping the same as it used to be. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because of the difference of how Tekken 8 has just changed the system. It's different from Tekken 7. It's a less like counter hit heavy game. So you would think that Steve still has a good counter hit too, despite the nerfs overall to most of the characters in Tekken 8. So I don't know, it just feels as though back one isn't really the sweet spot. Like it's just not there, but like it's still back one, don't get me wrong, but I just don't know what it is, bro. But it just feels weird, right? Down forward 2 not launching anymore. I wish they would give this back to Steve, right? Steve needs to get his identity back as being the counter hit god of this game. If you ask me right now who is the best counter hit character, honestly I would say Lee. Like Lee tops it. Lee, Brian as well is up there, and I would play Steve as third, which sucks because I think Steve has always carried the mantle of being like the counter hit character, the counter hit god of the Tekken series, but I feel as though that identity has been taken away from it. I don't understand the down forward to nerf. This thing was like so hard to do. Like I love Steve, I put in so many hours in Steve in Tekken 7, but even I couldn't consistently land down forward to combos all the time. I would get it like 2 out of 5 times, which was just sad. But like then why take that away from us? Like just give it back to our boy. That's his identity. Secondly, people don't really talk about this that much, but it also affects Steve in a huge sense. His while standing 2. He lost the counter hit on his while standing 2 as well. So this goes back to Steve losing his identity as a counter hit character. Like why did you take that away from him? Of course they made it into a punish, which is good. Also goes into Lionheart for like guaranteed mix up. It's good, don't get me wrong, but like why take away the counter hit effect? I don't understand. Just some of these changes really affected Steve in a huge way, like in a huge way. Flicker, right? Flicker back, flicker jabs, flicker 1 down 1. The down 1 also lost its counter hit. It just knocks down now for like a follow up. It used to instant screw back in Tekken 7. It was actually nerfed in Tekken 7 as well. It used to get a full combo before, but now he just gets a knockdown. So that sucks. That part as well was taken away from him. The back 2 nerf as well. He doesn't get a full combo anymore. He just gets like a knockdown. So he just gets a guaranteed Sonic Fang. That also affects Steve in a lot. So all these changes, they might seem like very little changes, but if you put all of these things together, they just affect Steve in a huge way, like in a huge way, and you can tell. Like every time I play Steve, I just feel as though it's not the same. It's not that he's weak, right? It's not that he's a bad character. It just doesn't feel the same, and I don't really know how to explain it. I don't know if it's because of the meta of how Tekken 8 works. Like someone make me understand. I haven't played Steve in a while as well, since I took him like Tekken King like what, a month ago. So I haven't really picked up Steve since then, because I've been enjoying Leroy more, you know, Lars as well, and Raven. But I haven't played Steve as much as I did at the beginning of the game. And if you look at his other tools as well, his lows are bad. Down 1 is -13, and he only does like what, 11 damage, and it's only -2 on blocks. And why is it -13, guys? Like, make it make sense. Someone make it make sense. I get that Steve is a very compact character, he's a very safe character, but it just feels as though so much has been taken away from him, and I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. The Pakistanis have always put respect on Steve. I believe Alvan Ash also put Steve in the A tier, which is a very good placement. So I'm not saying Steve is a bad character. I just feel as though most of his stuff has been taken away from him. His identity has been taken away from him, and he needs this given back to him. So what would I like changed about Steve? First of all, like I said, give him back his down 4-2, give him back his outstanding 2 counter 8 2s, flicker 1 down 1, give that back to him. Oh my days, I forgot to talk about down back 3-2, not knocking down anymore. This change sucks. It sucks. I thought it would be better after the buff to him not being forced into Lionheart, but guys, it doesn't change much. Down back 3-2, the old version was just better. Like, Steve was a beast at the war. If Steve took you to the war, you'd actually be very scared. But like right now, Steve can... his down back 3-2 is not as threatening, because people do have options after down back 3-2. They can parry if they make a right read. They can duck if you do, you know, Lionheart 1+2. Power Crush sometimes, Hit Burst. Like, there are options around. Yes, it's plus, super plus, but there are options around it. Whilst back in Tekken 7, you just do down back 3-2, you get a knockdown into insane Oki. In some instances, if you had the execution, you get a full combo at the war as well. So all this power has been taken away from it, and the effects are there. Like, you can feel it. So I would want that back as well. I would also want them to like rework his hit a bit, or just fix his hit. Like, his command grabs from hit take so much of his hit gauge, and they are risky because you can react to his grabs, right? You can hear the flash, then just duck. I know you can get a mix up, but like, it's risky, and for that risk, it takes away so much hit, even after they break it, right? Dragonov's tackle doesn't cost as much as Steve's grabs in hit, so I would like that reworked. Just make it a little bit better, reduce the amount of hit gauge that he spends when you break the throw or when he has the throw as well, or just make his hit just a little bit better overall. But again, I'm not saying Steve is bad. I still love Steve. I still like Steve. Feels good, man. Like, I'll always love this character. One of my top 5 favorite characters of all time in Tekken for sure. I am not saying he's weak. I'll keep repeating myself. He's a strong freaking character. But like, his identity, man, he doesn't feel like the Steve we've all loved and known for the longest time. I know people are fed up of seeing him at the top, you know, but like, man, just give him some back of his power, and I think Steve would still be in a very good situation, or in a very good spot. I don't think he would be as annoying as he was back in Tekken 7, and like super top tier and difficult to deal with. So yeah, that's what I feel about Steve currently in the game. So let me know, what do you guys think, my fellow Steve mains? I know I have a lot on my channel. I've got a lot of subscribers from my Steve video, which is doing pretty well, and thank you for the support, by the way. The Steve guide is cooking. So tell me, guys, how do you feel about Steve in this game? I know there is not much character representation. I think even Nee played him in grand finals against Book, but he lost, which sucked. But overall, I think Loha is the only one like carrying Steve at high level. We haven't seen Hera compete so far, you know, in TWT, which kind of sucks, but hopefully we do see him in due time. So let me know, what do you think about Steve? What does he need? Is he in a good place, or maybe he needs more? Like, how do you feel in the non-Steve players? How do you feel about Steve as well? So I just wanted to talk about my boy. I still love him, but I just miss some of the old power that was taken away from him. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my video. Please like, subscribe as usual, and check out my other Steve content. I have a bunch of Steve content, by the way, and more coming soon, so you don't want to miss out. So GG, my boys, and may the frame data be ever in your favor. GG.